Hello, good morning. I know it's nearly lunchtime, and maybe some of you, seeing the title, are waiting to hear about food and cooking, but we will not talk about food. So if you want to go to a restaurant, we understand that we will not blame you, because we are talking about, guess what? Journalism. The guys you see in front of you and a bunch of other guys in the room met for the first time 1 year ago here in Perugia. Now we are friends, and this could be enough for us, but not for you. During last year, we became also professional werewolf players, and we can prove it whenever you want. But a part of this, we learned a lot. Everyone in the media ecosystem knows that we are fighting a daily struggle, not only to save our jobs, which is important, but most important, we are trying to leave the media ecosystem a little better than we found. And at the end, to keep the light on, because, as you know, democracy dies in darkness. So that's the reason why we proudly called ourselves ninjas. And it's a strange thing about this word, because we spent a year together, and our group always called us NIN, which stands for News Impact Network. And we never thought that our name could be ninjas, until at the end of the program, someone put a hashtag into Twitter, and we discovered that we could be ninjas. And it's an example, but it's so simple, because many things you never think before, and then they appear in front of you. And that's the way things happen. And so today we want to share with you our thoughts, our learnings, our adventure, and possibly hear from your voice to understand if we have the same problems, the same goals, or different problems with similar solutions. So today we are presenting our recipes. And we will learn, you will learn how to become a good ninja. And why recipes? Because when we ended up to present the work that we've done, some of us proposed this kind of formula to summarize our findings and our thoughts, our experience into recipes. So I quickly introduce the chefs. We are 15 people from all across Europe. And Christina Elmer from Spiegel Online, Lise Lecomte from The Standard, and Anu Bode from Helsinki Sanomat. They are here. I'm Andrea Iannuzzi from La Repubblica. Then we have Alex Entwistle, Andras Peto, Elisa Anyangwe, Ezra Dogramashi, who is not here, David Tron, Esther Alonso, Gayatri Parmesan, it's not easy for me, John Crowley, Gustav Bessen, Susanna Ziomeka, Rachel Hamada. Special guests, Paola Montagnator, Mattia Peretti. Paola is still from European Journalist Center. Mattia Peretti worked for European Journalist Center. Now he's changed position. And Trana, who was our trainer of design thinking. So here we are. As I said, everything started 1 year ago here in Perugia. And I would like to ask to Mattia if you can give him a microphone to explain which is the idea behind the News Impact Network. Is there a microphone? Okay, you can come here if you want.
That's for me. Thanks, Andrea. Well, hello everybody. This is not rehearsed. I didn't know Andrea was calling me here, so sorry for that. Yeah, so News Impact is an initiative that at the European Journalism Center we have been running with Paula, who's here as well, for 3 years. There's the News Impact Summit, the News Impact Academy, and the News Impact Network. Some of you might be familiar already with some of that. The summits are events about innovation in journalism. Everything is funded by the Google News Initiative. And we have been organizing these events across Europe they have been organizing, I'm not there anymore. I need to think about that. For 4 years, I think. And then the Academy was added a few years ago as a design training initiative for journalists to kind of explore what design can do. And I see some participants also in the room. And then the network was just our idea that we had a couple of years ago with Paula. We were just trying to understand how we could serve the community of journalism innovators that we were meeting across Europe better, and with something that would create a long-lasting connection and would allow them to learn from each other on a more regular basis than just on a one-day training or event. And that's how the network came to be. So we offered this opportunity to all the participants of the Academy of the year before. It was like 100 people, I think, more or less. And it was a very tough selection. We didn't know if we were getting applications. We didn't know if this was going to be interesting for anybody, and apparently it was. And so we managed to select these 15 incredible people from across Europe, and we created this 1 year, 9-month program where we really worked with them, and they worked all together across the year, learning from each other. We met in Perugia, we went to London, where we had a few very hot days, just trying to learn as much as we could from other industries. So we met people that have nothing to do with journalism to see what we could learn from them in terms of innovation methods. And then we gather at the end of the year, also in Berlin, on the occasion of the last summit, to kind of share with the rest of the community what we have learned together in the form of this cookbook recipe. And yeah, I'm so glad that we are here 1 year later as family, sort of, to share with you more of what we have learned. So thanks, Andrea, for putting together the panel, and I think I'm leaving it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mattia. I am happy that you could explain the idea behind the network. And now let's jump to the recipes. And we will start with Christina Elmer and her change infusion. You can see the screen, or you want to come here? For me, it's the same.
It's
okay,
fine.
it's fine.
I can do it from here. Thanks a lot. So, change infusion. This is how our recipes look like, thanks to Paula, who did the design. I will go into the details later, so you don't have to read that, and just give you some more insights into my own background. I worked as a science journalist and a data journalist for some years, and this was all very fact-based and evidence-based, of course, and I would, of course, stick to that for the future. But now working more in the newsroom management side, I feel that in times of constant change and fractions and insecurity amongst our colleagues, there are some other challenges that we also have to face. And I chose a different one for the network, which is how might we foster this change by focusing on our colleagues, because they can also be the users in the user-centric design concerning those processes. So I did some empathy interviews, which was a technique that we learned in our first month in the network. And I was quite surprised to hear from my colleagues that they really remembered, or what they remembered most, were moments when they have been really emotionally engaged into the process and really felt disappointed and felt not seen in the process. And besides everything that we communicated and informed about, this really stuck. So I thought, well, this reminds me of this nice Kübler-Ross change curve that you all might know, this valley of depression here in the middle. That's just an emotional state of mind, and you have to help your colleagues and yourself to really motivate yourself to get over or through it, and to really climb up that hill towards integrating the change in the end. So I think this is what it's also all about, because we are working with so many smart people who can, of course, understand the change and know why it's important, but this is an emotional thing. What we did in former times, and of course this is also happening today, sometimes is that we try to inform everyone and do one-way communication. People feel somehow over-informed, I think, and it's not really a discussion. It's really a one-way thing in some cases. And then in the end, we had working groups, for example, without implemented results, or at least the people did not really know if or that their results have been implemented. So this is also something that really depressed them around the change process. So in the end, this is really a good sum up of the situation. You have a rational understanding of the change and the needs, but an emotional confusion. And on the other hand side, on the side of the cooperation or organization, a certain incompetence to deal with this frustration, because we feel that we did so much, we have done so much information and gathered everyone, so why isn't this working quite well? So what we did last year, also because of the inputs of the network, is we started design thinking at our media house, and also created some personas who stood for different user groups and user needs, like this Christian here up above, who is our common reader, and he's already a fan of Spiegel Online, and Nina down here is representing a user group that we want to reach more often and more intensively. So these are just 2 of 8 personas we're working with. They have been built evidence-based, of course, so we used our user metrics to find out which user groups we want to have in there, and then we validated them with real interviews with real people, and then took them into workshops internally and let the colleagues work with them, let them really build up some empathy for them, and then design new services, new formats, new products, and I feel that this worked out quite well. We experienced our teams in a total different situation and emotional state of mind compared to all the other change workshops or this thinking and being informed about something. So I think this has been a really good experience for me in the last year, and I feel that these emotional moments came up there quite often. So what do you need? This is something that I also have been summarizing in the recipe. Of course, the design thinking process, you have to get someone on board who can teach you that, or who can teach you how to teach it. So we first brought in some experts, now we can do it on our own. You need, of course, the executive commitment, because it is open in terms of results. Sometimes you don't know if there will be something coming up that you could use later on. But even if it doesn't, the empathy, the experience is also really important for the teams. And yeah, great music. I mean, great is also meant from the user point of view. The user is the workshop, the colleague in the workshop. So we asked them to send in their 3 favorite songs for work and build up a playlist and use this for the brainstorming and for the prototyping session, which really made a difference because everyone was seen in a totally different way, and it was really another emotional involvement. And I think this is a great hack for those workshops to just collect some music. We had everything from REM to Smetana, so it was really diverse, and I love that about this. So this is how I would really, what I would hope for my colleagues to feel like at work after those workshops, really more self-effective and also curious and eager to learn new things, because we need this state of mind to be successful in our change process in the end, I think. And taking fun seriously is my most important and favorite take away from those design thinking workshops, because it's a really important rule in there, and I think you could apply it to every situation at work as well. So yeah, and then besides Pippi Langstrumpf, I wanted to introduce you to another great woman, which is Gayatri. And she is bringing in a really different perspective into our network, because she's not working in a newsroom. She is working on longer formats, on documentaries. She is the co-founder of a startup, Now Here Media, and is an XR creator in immersive storytelling. So she's also working with a new technology that is not yet adapted by many news organizations already. So it's a really different perspective from mine. And she has brought in a really complex dish with really sophisticated ingredients and also a dash of luck needed. And these are the most important steps and advice that she summed up in her recipe to really be a successful startup founder. Really first build up an interdisciplinary and diverse team as a foundation for everything, then define your goals together, get some early seed funding, which she describes as the hardest step of it all, of everything, because it of course involves pitching your ideas over and over again and convincing founders. But if you've done that, you can brew your ideas and create a proof of concept and really allow your team to get into things. Then have a business plan, hire a consultant if you have no business people on board. And also, and I think this is really a great hint, assign one team member to be the PR machine in the team. So because you need to increase your online visibility, you need to attend conferences, you need to do the networking. And so this can be done by one member of the team, and also get a mentor outside of the team to not having to replicate all their mistakes or the mistakes of the mentors, but so that you can really experience your own. And then I just had some questions for her as a startup founder, because I thought, well, should we as journalists now all start to think more like startups? There are some people might think that this would be the solution of it all. And she says, no, she's not really into that idea. She thinks that it's not helpful in every situation and in every setup. But what you need as a journalist is to really, you really have to set up a sustainable innovation process and setup, and also be able to fail in small-scale projects. Then she also came up with an advice that no one really gives you. Find a support network, find your supporting environment that helps you to cope with all the difficulties and challenges of running a startup. And I think this has been something really great concerning our network. And I think that we really found this kind of supporting network and environment. Secret spices, of course, dedication and persistence. Do it in a sustainable way, have a slow growth, don't do it too fast, because so many startups don't survive because they grow too fast. And one of her favorite ninja learnings is to just be bold and finding out what really is driving you, where your passions are, and to carve that niche. And I can really relate to that from the data journalism point of view, and this is where we met. So I think Gayatri should be on the festival as well today. So if you want to discuss topics with her, she should be somewhere, and or just ask someone out of the team. So yeah, this is what I wanted to bring in and hand over to you.
Okay, thank you. I think that one of the reason why this team worked is the mix of different cultures and experiences between legacy media and startups and different backgrounds. And I think that you and Gayatri are the right example of this, and I'm happy that you chose to present her recipe after yours, because it's an example of how different experiences can come together and find out something useful for both. And I give the microphone to Liz, who will present her recipe and another one recipe.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Lisa. I come from Belgium, where I work for the Standard. And this was me when joining the News Impact Network. I was hoping to learn how to improve our organization so that finally everyone in the newsroom would dive into the digital bath. And I was hoping to learn how to convert more readers into subscribers. And I was very much focused to processes and output and diagrams. And I very soon realized that one important thing was missing, and that was the people. So throughout the year, my focus shifted from these processes to leadership and to the importance of communication and of giving feedback. Oh, and I shouldn't be there yet. Because I realized that you can have the best plan in the world, but it's not going to work if the people who have to execute it don't understand what they are doing and why they should shift their habits. So I thought a lot about which recipe I would write from that. I thought first to write one on how to install a feedback culture in the newsroom, which is something that we are often missing. We are very good at criticizing people outside the newsroom, but we don't dare tell our own colleagues what we think they could do better. I thought about writing one on how we need mentorship for young leaders in the newsroom. Often good journalists are just catapulted into a new position and then are left by themselves to figure out how to manage that. And in the end, oh, I'm too far again. In the end, I chose to do something that brings together all aspects of leadership and puts a magnifying glass on it. And that is the setup of temporary multi-skilled project teams. So those are teams that we installed, we started early last year, and we would bring together people from all aspects of the organization, maybe a political journalist, a data journalist, a designer, a developer, a project manager, and then have them work together on a big story. And for me, that was the logical next step. The Standard has evolved over the past years from a classical print organization with a digital department to a multi-platform organization where most people work for several outlets. And I thought, well, now we're going to put them together and the result is going to be so much better. But I soon found out that what is a logical next step to me might not be logical for the other people. And maybe they may not even have digested the previous step yet. Or they may be left very insecure by all the previous steps and become even more insecure by what we are asking them now. And the other thing I realized was that even though people would work together or know each other, we are a very small newsroom. The Standard has just over 100 people, so everyone knows everyone, at least by name, and from the occasional chat by the coffee machine. But it's not because you talk over coffee that you actually know how to work together and that you know how the other people like to work. So we had to make some changes throughout our first project like that. So how can you make it work? First of all, you have to make your team into a team. So that means that everyone knows from the other people why they are there, what they are good at, what their sensitivities are, how they like to work. The team needs to find a common language. If you put a developer and a journalist together, they generally don't understand each other very well. We had former print journalists who were used to working on their own and keeping their story with them till the very end and then give it to the copy editors. And then you had like former digital people who were very used to working in an iterative way, giving each other feedback. That feedback was not always well received by people who were used to being the stars of the newsroom. You would have people who were didn't really understand how what the technical implications were of some decisions that were made. So you need to get them to understand each other, speak this common language, and secondly, you need to make sure that everyone understands the goal of the project. In the very first project we did, we had this great innovative idea. We thought about it in my projects team, and we had no example anywhere. So we were very happy and enthusiastic, and we would put all these people together and say, it's going to be so great, and you have this example and that example and that example, and we'll put all of them together and then put a source of this over that and the design layer of that, and it's going to be amazing. And we were like, yay. And the other people were like, what? Yeah, I guess. And we were like, it's okay, you will notice while we're at it. But they didn't. We would tell them, yeah, we need from you, we need this copy, and from you, we need this design. And yeah, only when they would start delivering, we would notice that it was not what we had in mind and not something that we could use. And then I realized that whereas at first we were thinking that the others were, we were overestimating their understanding of what we were doing, and then we would become over-understanding towards them. And we would start making or giving excuses why their result wasn't really what we had in mind. But all this sugarcoating really led to frustration on all sides, because, well, you cannot have the result that's not good enough. So people would start micromanaging, and we would start like tweaking things on them by themselves, and then everyone was frustrated in the end. The people who felt that, why are you not using my work or not keeping my work as it was? The other people, because they were like, I am fixing their work and I'm not getting the credit for it. So basically what it comes down to in these projects, you get to the challenges of leading any team. It's just everything is magnified, and it all comes down to the same things of leadership. It's about communication, 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 and keep an eye on the human aspect. Then the second recipe was something very different. It's by Alex Antwessel, who's sitting right there. Hi, Al. And who wrote a recipe for a quick breakfast, or a quick break fast. He wrote something that I'm sure everyone in this room knows. We'll say, of course, and I think very few of us actually do. He wrote about the need to take breaks, to have lunch away from our computer, to just take micro breaks and go and grab a coffee or go outside, give our eyes some rest, give our brain some rest and some time to process. And also to tune off every now and then. I think everyone will recognize the leaving the office and then get home and start working again. So we all know it's not good for we're not getting more efficient by it, we're not getting it kills our creativity, and still we keep doing it. And of course we're in a newsroom, so things are constantly changing, we should constantly be on top of things. But talking to Al, and we've talked a lot, made me realize that often I'm working in the evenings just out of habit and not because it's really necessary. And also that, well, I was thinking I was a good leader because I was telling my people, I would be doing it, but I was telling my people, like, tune off, and if we've had a sprint or a marathon towards the deadline, try to take some time back in the weeks after, like, take it easy, take some rest. But I would be working in the evening and sending them emails and thinking, well, you don't have to read them this evening, you can read them tomorrow. But I was constantly giving them the message that it's okay to work in the evening, because I'm doing it. So now I still sometimes work in the evening. I still write emails in the evening. I stopped sending them in the evening. And you could call me very hypocritical. I would say it's like a first step towards my detox. And I can recommend it to all of you.
Thank you, Liz. And I have something to ask you, but I will leave it to the second part of the panel. And I leave the microphone to Anu.
Hi all, my name is Anu Ubo. I'm the managing editor of Helsingin Sanomat, which is the daily national newspaper in Finland. So I have the background of being in manager positions for 7 years now. Now in Helsingin Sanomat and previously, mostly in the newsrooms and then on the magazine side before that. So I actually stepped into this network at the same time as I started my managing editor job in Helsingin Sanomat. So during the year, I have been in the leadership and management team, and it has truly helped me like to transform the processes, develop as a leader in my own newsroom. So it was a very good coincidence that I actually happened to step into the network exactly at the same time as I started my job as a managing editor. So I have been dealing with how to lead the change and how to lead innovation in a newsroom during this year. And I was, as I said, I was in the leader and management team. So there was a guy called Gustav Bessem also with me there. And we have the kind of similar background. Gustav is leading the digital side of the Volkskrant, which is the leading quality newspaper in the Netherlands. So we are kind of from the same kind of newsrooms, and we work together a lot with the same kind of challenges. So I'm sharing my and Gustav's thoughts about how to lead the change, how to lead innovation. You change it. Thank you. Okay, so our main question was how to lead change and how to encourage innovation in a very large newsroom in these times when the change is constant. So you all the time after the change comes a new change, and you have to adapt and start over again and learn how to do business and learn how to win the business and learn how to lead the people and innovate. So these were my my ingredients for the recipe. I can't see them there, so I have to turn around a bit. So these are the ingredients that you should have. If you can. Okay. These are the ingredients that you should, I think you should have when you're working in a large newsroom and leading the change. Our newsrooms, we are altogether 250 people in Helsingin Sanomat. So I've been focusing on having a clear strategy and vision, having understandable KPIs to measure the success and to communicate with your people. You should always have data instead of opinions. We have all the data that we can possibly have, and the amount of data is growing all the time, and yet the journalists are very good at presuming things and thinking we know actually what readers want. Actually we don't, so use the data and communicate it and learn teach your people how to use the data. Then the greatest things happen in cross-sectional teams. So we have built, during the year, we have built cross-sectional teams where journalists, marketing people, developers, customer service, we sit together, we work together, and we share processes. We talk about leadership, we talk about how we work together. So that has changed the culture a lot. Then we have started a sort of talent management program to grow your people, to grow our people. And I think you should give feedback so that 80% of the feedback is always positive and 20% can be critical. But I come to this point later on, but I think leaders and managers should focus more on the positive feedback, and you should also learn how to, for example, tolerate bad ideas in order to start to get new ones. And then the mentality of trying hard, obviously, and the real license to fail. Then talk, and more talk, and also a lot of laughter and empathy. And empathy was one of the themes that we shared and talked about in the network this year a lot. So I will then share some of our main takeaways that we talked during this year in the leadership team. So the first question is, does your organization actually look like your strategy? This seems like an easy question, but I think I argue a lot of times your organization doesn't actually look like your strategy. I mean, if I always pop the question, if someone that worked in your newsroom in the 90s would show up now and visit you, would he or she be like, okay, There's the digital news desk nowadays separated from everyone, and then there's a data desk, but otherwise it looks like it used to be. So if you should, as managers and leaders, you should really focus whether your organization actually supports your strategy. You should also think about how you use your time. If you're just talking about the strategy, you are talking about digital goals, but actually spending a lot of time micromanaging the print or whatever, then probably your people are doing the same as well. We have been focusing on creating roles that didn't exist before. So if you have some goal, for example, we have the hard paywall and we have the successful strategy to get more young readers with these, we call them diamond articles that we put out there from 3 to 5 every day. So they are to attract like the younger readers, new readers. So we couldn't have done that if we wouldn't have like created roles that people actually, there are roles that only focus on processing these kind of articles and understanding the background of those readers and producing those articles. Then, as I said, all the great things happen in cross-sectional teams. We start our every week in a team where there are journalists, managers, customer service, and developers and marketing people. We look at the churn, we look at how many new readers do we have, who they are, how did our content perform, why did people churn, what are the reasons, and so on. So every day, every week we start with that. Then I think you should also create kind of startups inside the big organization in order to really get the people to understand and commit themselves to the strategy and own the strategy. The second question is, have you taken the easy tips for granted? And this is something that we discussed in the leadership NIN team a lot. Like the easiest tips, like you should communicate a lot. We always hear that, and we actually think that we talk enough, but we don't. We are very bad at communicating things. We also know the easy tip that change is always mental, and you should know that people react differently, but actually very nasty things happen in newsrooms because of the fact that people can't tolerate other people reacting differently than they do. So we, as Christina told you, we learned this kind of tool called empathy interviews, and it was something that changed my mind a lot and my way of thinking. I had thought I was pretty good at listening people and understanding their background, but after introducing this tool of design thinking, I really progressed with the people when I actually started to listen and understand the background, where they come from. I also think that we all know the simple rules, like everyone should love their jobs, but you should really follow that rule. You get all the goals, all the success comes only if people really love their work and they are committed to their work and colleagues. We have been, like, the common way of leading this industry has been the fire under your ass style. You should be afraid at work, so success comes from your fear, but it actually doesn't. Then the third takeaway question is, did you presume things again? And this is the kind of basis for the innovation. As I told before, we have all the data, so don't presume what people think. Journalists seems to have often kind of narrow way of thinking about their readers or thinking about the media usage. So get the data and start to understand how people actually consume media in general or your brand, and then start to develop new innovation around that data. Also, don't presume things in the organization. I think the worst thing that a millennial leader like myself can do is to presume that older people, for example, can't be part of the successful transformation. We are categorizing people too much. according to their age and background. So you shouldn't presume things. You should actually learn to know your people. And then fourth question, what if micromanaging is a good thing? I mean, no one wants that micromanager that doesn't empower the people and doesn't delegate anything and you know, everyone knows this bad type, but I argue, and this is a topic that we talked about a lot, that there is sort of a good way of micromanaging as well, because you should lead the change by leading it very near to your people. So good micromanager is a kind of person that stays near the people, knows the processes, knows what they are dealing with. We should talk more about the journalists being overwhelmed. You should try to prevent the burnouts, and you should know what people are dealing with. This is kind of good micromanagement, I think. And then the last one is there really a license to fail in your newsroom? I mean, I'm the perfect example of a person always saying it's okay to fail, and then when I fail, it's like I don't sleep in a week and I hit myself in the brick wall, you know. So ask yourself, when did you fail the last time actually, and how did you react, and how do you respond to the failures? I think also when it's okay to fail, organizations don't use the time to learn from their mistakes, from the failures, so you should have time for that. I know companies that have, for example, failure Fridays, so they gather up and celebrate the failures of the week, so that's a good way to start. Also, there's a failure that you shouldn't, like the little failures that you should ignore, so don't celebrate, like don't make an issue of every mistake. Those were my mine and Gustav's main points, and we can continue with Andrea.
Thank you. I'm Andrea Iannuzzi, and I'm a digital managing editor at La Repubblica. For the last year, I've been in charge of our new premium product, and I read that today in Italy is Carbonara Day. Is it right? Yeah. You know, in Italy, carbonara is a very simple plate, is a very simple dish, but everyone has his or her own carbonara recipe. And this is what happens in a newsroom. Everybody has his or her own recipe for success, for products, and so this is why I choose this kind of recipe, and this is why I focused during my year-long program on newsroom transformation. I think that transformation is about process. If you think that you want to be a transformer, you need not to focus on results but on the process, and you know that you'll probably never see the end of this project and this process. From my personal point of view, also thanks to this NIN experience, I experimented 3 steps of transformation. First, during last years, I focused on media ecosystem transformation. Like everybody knows, we are in the middle of a revolution. Everything is changing, and this was the first alarm for me, and this is that was the reason why I started to focus on transformation. I have a print background, and I come from print journalism, so that was my first interest and goal. Try to understand our ecosystem transformation. Then I got into the newsroom transformation because of my job, because of my roles. I was editor-in-chief in local newspapers, and so I had to deal with this kind of transformation every day of my life. And finally, I got to the personal transformation, because I understood, thanks to this experience, that the main important things is to focus on personal transformation and on people. And I tried to find a way to measure the impact of transformation, which are the metrics, or what marketing people call KPIs. I tried to figure out some of them. The first goal of transformation is when people in the newsroom, journalists and managers, start to listen to readers' feedback, corrections, suggestions. It seems a simple thing, but it's not so easy to have into the daily workflow in the newsroom. The second transformation signal that I recognize is when editors in the newsroom, so people in the middle management, start to come at the early morning meeting instead of the evening page one meeting. This is a signal of change. Another transformation KPI is when people in the newsroom start to focus not only on clicks, but on conversion rate, which is far more important. For the same thing, I think that this is most important to focus on direct traffic, on your loyal readers, instead of clicks and baits and social engagement. And the last KPI that I found is when editors and people in the newsroom become familiar with A/B testing headlines and analytics, and to try to work having the measure of their work in front of their eyes. As I said, a transformer is a bridge. You've probably heard of this word in the last month, and it's an important word in the newsroom organization. The bridge roles, people who try to put together different experiences inside of the newsroom, to speak with different people, and to find the right melting from different backgrounds and experiences. But the bridges have a destiny, because they connect a point A to a point B, and people used to walk over the shoulder to go from A to B. So if you want to be a bridge, you have to stay a step behind to make this thing happen. Which are the ingredients of my recipe? First of all, vision. You need to have a vision if you want to go ahead with the project. You have to look forward and think of what will happen, not tomorrow, but in the future. Then you need to have motivation, and to share this motivation with your colleagues, with people who can help you to go ahead with transformation. Then collaboration, and it's very important. The team building, and the team building can be done around a new project or product. If you want to launch a new app, or you want to change your daily workflow, you need to focus on a specific project and try to collect people interest and ideas and efforts on this. Then you need the early adopters, people in the newsroom who are enthusiastic about the project and they want to start with it, to try to go ahead. And you need also evangelists, people who go to other people in the newsroom and try to explain them how to make things done. Last, the fail fast culture, because you know that your projects could be good but could be fail, and you have to change fast, to quit projects and to start other projects without regret. From the failures point of view, one of the things that I noticed is that we often mistake motion for progress. We fall in love with videos, then we fall in love with VR, then we fall in love with AI, then we say, let's change, let's redesign our homepage, let's do podcasts. But then we find that we are still stuck in the same problems. Because it's not a matter of tools or projects or new things to do. We need to go ahead, behind, and beside these things, these tools, and try to focus on people. Some examples of failures. One failure is when you put the digital guy in the middle of the newsroom and think that somehow contamination and transformation will happen. They will feel like animals in the zoo, and other people in the newsroom will leave them apart doing the internet stuff, and this is not good. And if other people in the newsroom will try to do that kind of stuff, the digital guys will be scared to lose their specific attitudes which make them special. So they will be conservative, and it's the opposite of transformation. Another important thing that I learned is the difference between speed and pace. It's not a question of speed. You don't have to do everything fast, or you don't have to wait because things must go slow. You have to find the right pace of your newsroom, of your collaborators, and of your colleagues. Another big problem in newsrooms is the top-down culture, and it's easy to explain why. And the last thing is to fall in love with tools. I think that we need to focus on people, I said, because people want to change, but people are scared of losing their job. People are frustrated. People are overwhelmed. And this leads me to the final recipe for today, which is from our friend John Crowley. John is the wise man of the group. I didn't say old because I turned 50, so I am old, but he's wise. And during the NIN experience, John, who used to work for Legacy Media and now is an independent consultant and digital strategist, focused on this problem of burnout and overwhelming for journalists. John put on stage a survey with a bunch of journalists, and from this survey emerged that over half of journalists are overwhelmed by information and ask for solution. We constantly receive emails and messages and inputs from different sources during our daily work. 40% are overwhelmed, but they manage to make it work, and only 7% said information flows were well under control. And 3 in 4 said they like news organization to begin a conversation with third-party companies on the subject of improving information flows. This is, I think that this is one of the most important things came up from John recipe and experience, because he says that the problem is that the management, for ignorance or for desire to react to the changing face of the digital journalism, are simply asking journalists to stay connected far too much. And so what John is trying to say is that we have to find tools and methods to manage this information overload, and also a way to calm down and to find ways to react to this information overload. And this is these are the ingredients and the solution from John's recipe. So management buy-in, conversation with the third-party platforms to find new tools, further research, new training processes, and assessing priorities. And which are the takeaways of his research? There's a message overload, which is a strong issue among journalists and newsrooms. And to find out a solution, people need to work together. One important thing is that journalists shouldn't be afraid to flag their concerns to management. And the last is that managers and companies should come and sit with journalists to become aware of their struggle. So these were the recipes, and I want to go on asking to you what this experience left to you, this year-long experience left to you. What I found is that I understood that the problem is not to have the right answers or the wrong answers, but it's a problem of having the right questions. And I want to ask to Christina, who is an expert of design thinking, how design thinking, in your experience, help to put the right questions before the right answers?
Really dramatically helped by switching the focus on the user needs and really emphasizing the approach to do this via empathy, and that you can really focus on a few of those user needs to find new solutions that you have not really thought about before. Those workshops are really different experiences compared to the things people experience in the newsroom in their everyday work. So it has been something quite special for them, and I hope that they take this empathy approach into their everyday life afterwards. And I think the key is to really find your focus and to gain freedom through a structure or a framework. And design thinking really gives you this framework where you can really go and have brainstormings and just produce many ideas, and then focus on one of them, and then really again prototype and again focus on one specific aspect. So this really helps you to leave this ground of criticizing everything that comes up in a new way, and just producing the best idea and leaving everything else behind. So, and this is quite well connected for me to the systemic approach that I also learned last year. Just to, I mean, you don't have to understand every problem to find a solution for that. And I think this is something that we as journalists really are not that good at. Leave a problem behind and just avoid to think about it too long. And it's really okay and works quite well to just search for a solution without understanding every little bit of the problem.
Thank you. Anu, how did this experience change your job, your relationship with colleagues, and your personal approach to journalism and to your daily work?
Well, I think, as I probably said also previously, that it's not a secret that we don't talk about leadership and management enough. Like, we are very good at speaking about content and business, but we don't actually. In many newsrooms, it's not just our newsroom. I think it's probably almost, or at least majority of the newsrooms, we don't talk about the processes and the management enough. So it was kind of mind-blowing to be part of the network where we actually discussed these questions. And it's always, whether it's about leadership or about business and how to grow in business, I think it's very relevant and important to broaden your view and get international examples. So it's like the network is like the festival happening for 1 year. So you broaden your views, and it's always also good to measure and realize where your newsroom is ahead of many others and where can you learn. So yeah, I think that's the main thing that it gave me.
Okay, and Liz, during the experience we had various chats and video calls, and every time we tried to focus on our big challenge, but we struggle with daily problems and new stuff and new projects. And so what I want to ask you is, how do you deal long-term projects with daily problems and challenges?
That's a very good question. I ask myself that every day. Maybe to give an idea, the team that I work in, we work both on strategic projects on the very long term. We work on editorial projects that can be short term or mid-long term. We work sometimes on purely digital projects. Sometimes it's newsroom wide, and sometimes it involves technical department, marketing department. We are, like you said, the bridge role. So I pretty much constantly feel like a ballet dancer in a split who is trying to juggle at the same time. And for me, in fact, the network has really helped, because it has forced me to, like, at least on a monthly basis, to, by talking to these people, to take a step back and to think of what we are doing and put things in the grander scheme. Because, like, during the month, often it was in a rat race, and we would be talking in 1 week and say, oh yeah, this is our focus for now. And then I would come out of our call and talk to my editor-in-chief, who said, like, oh, we have to focus on something different. And this has really helped me, A, to put it in perspective, to see that other people are also struggling with that, and B, to take the step back to make it clear in my own head what I thought was priority for the newsroom at that time. And it often helped to go back and say, I know you're asking me this and that and that and that, but shouldn't we take a step back and focus on this first? Another thing about the network and the design thinking was take the time to define the problem. And it often happened that, in fact, we changed what we were working on because we realized that we weren't giving an answer to the right question.
Thank you. Before going to lunch, are there any questions?
Thank you for this great panel. I was wondering, because I studied a little bit about collective learning and how you stimulate collective learning in teams, and I'm really interested in how that works in an autonomous profession like journalism. So my question is, how do you stimulate interdependence in a team, in a profession that is normally quite autonomous? And my second question is, how do you give space to the discomfort that inevitably comes with and is actually quite useful in learning, for learning and transformation, because discomfort from the learning theory is quite a normal ingredient, but it needs some space because it takes a lot of energy and sometimes even pain in transformation.
Who wants to answer? Listen.
I would say
Kristen?
maybe one first thought is that you just have to understand and to admit, even as a leader, that you don't have the recipe beforehand. So, because the situations, if you compare the newsrooms and the different media companies, they are so unique. So are our roles and our problems that we are dealing with every day. We share certain challenges, of course, and I think there are some things that you can stick to, but to really admit that every learning situation is a totally new one. This really helps, because then you're on the same side with all your colleagues, and you're just trying to do this together. And then, of course, celebrate those who can bring in something helpful, even if it's just a tiny thing. For example, it helped us to build up a bi-weekly forum inside of the company where just someone could present something. It's just, it sounds quite, it's not rocket science, but you can really celebrate those tiny things when a guy from the graphics department just tells you how to do a map with the tool that everyone can use in just 10 minutes, and how this can be done. And so you see that there are many experts within your news company that haven't been identified before, and just to get everyone a bit more, feeling more self-effective, and strengthen the colleagues can really help to just improve this common learning experience that then you would have as a team.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, I think it's also indeed acknowledging that the discomfort is there and that it's okay, and that they're not supposed to have all the answers, that we don't have all the answers. Mm-hmm. And another thing is that often people don't realize their own expertise, and it's about giving them credit and making them realize that they know things and that they can do things that other people in the newsroom cannot yet do them. And like Christina was saying, giving them a forum to share that, and to also, like you used to have mentoring from older journalists to younger journalists, but it can go both ways now, and the older ones can also learn from the young ones.
Yes, I think many times, like when we talk about how to lead people and how to lead change, the talk is kind of negative, and I think the most important thing is to understand that we actually work with extremely talented people. Like the newsrooms are filled with extremely talented people, so it's not that we shouldn't have the discussion that is the discussion elsewhere, like as if people were wrong and people resisted the change. We actually have the extremely talented people, and the question is how to teach the talented people to be good at something like grow, and how to see their potential. So that we should switch the negative talk into the positive one, and you should also feed the mentality of trying, and also communicate it, that no one actually has, we have strategy, we know where we are going, we have very many examples of success and new kind of success, but no one actually has the key. I mean, if someone would have the key, the whole game would change. So you have to actually communicate constantly that no one has the answers, but we are trying, and we are trying hard and learning from that. I think that's important.
And maybe what we could add when it comes to design thinking workshops, I feel that journalists really bring in some important aspects to those workshops, but it's also quite hard for them to just do, for example, empathy interviews, because often they start with an interview with a hypothesis that they just want to check, and yeah, journalistic interviews are something different. So this is something everyone has to learn. I had to learn it myself, how to do these other interviews. But on the other hand side, they are incredibly good at storytelling. They really can bring this into those workshops. They can be great role players. We all experienced that in our werewolf sessions that we had in the network. So yeah, really to use those things and to use what everyone can bring in. That really helps you just to not feel that struggled. And I think it's all about the self-efficacy and consciousness. Yeah.
Other questions?
Just a very short question. What are the future plans for your network in 2019? And are you planning to actually teach or give these ingredients to other newsrooms outside of this network? Or help other newsrooms to implement these ingredients?
Well, first we have published our cookbook, so that is there to read for everyone.
I will share the link to the PDF cookbook with the festival Twitter account and hashtags. Yeah,
and then secondly, the network was supposed to be a 1-year thing or a 9-month thing. So it was supposed to be done at the end of December, and actually we decided among ourselves to continue doing it, and now we're a self-managing network where someone of the group is leading it for 2 months all the time. And in fact, I think I can speak for everyone that we can really recommend also to other people to find people in different organizations and different countries where you can exchange experiences and where you can talk freely with people who don't know actually whom you are talking about. It became quite, how do you say it, a self-aid group at times.
Yeah.
And very much recommended.
I don't know if European Journalism Center managed to do other networks. I don't think for now, but maybe this experience could be good for next projects, similar projects in the coming years. Okay, thank you all, and have a good stay here in Perugia, and thanks for all.